Therefore, I am full of the fury of the Lord. I am weary with holding it in. I will pour it out upon the children abroad and upon the assembly of young men together. For even the husband with the wife shall be taken, the age with him that is full of days. And their houses shall be turned unto others, and their fields and their wives together, for I will stretch out my hand upon the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord. For from the least of them even to the greatest of them every one is given to covetousness. And from the prophet even to the priest every one dealeth falsely. They have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people, slightly saying, Peace, peace, when there is no peace. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Sean, your host. The website is www.scriptureandprophecy.com. Today we're doing one of our end-time news podcasts today. And actually I had a couple of articles in mind, but then I felt late yesterday I was being led to talk about something else. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be reading about the first 4 seals in Revelation. And then looking at some headlines here, we're going to read Revelation chapter 6, the first 8 verses. Now, to be honest, going into the year 2020, so, today is October 23rd, 2019, I have to say I'm more concerned, and I just feel more something in my spirit, warnings in my spirit more as we go into the year 2020 than I have since probably the 2013, 2014, 15 era. During that era, we had the blood moons going on. We had a lot of things going on with like ISIS, and then we had the Ukraine incident, and we had ramping up of Christian persecution, which, by the way, has not stopped. If anything, Christian persecution around the world has continued to grow. It's just not at the forefront of the mind of American Christians, but it's continued to happen. And so all these things that started developing back then have continued to escalate. It's just, for whatever reason, the people have fallen asleep here in the West, here in the United States of America. There looked like there was starting to be a great awakening, and then people just went back to sleep. And where am I going with this? Other than to say that, I was very concerned during that time period. And I do think a lot came with those blood moons. Some people say, people who were talking about the blood moons, nothing came of it. I think a lot came of it. I think the world changed a lot since 2013, 14, and 15, that era. The world has changed a lot. And anyway, I haven't felt the way I feel right now about the year 2020, with the concern that I have right now since that time period. And so you can do whatever you want with that. Again, it's just a feeling that I have. I'm just very, 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 very concerned, and on very, very high alert as we begin to move into the year 2020. Let me start by reading Revelation 6, just the first 8 verses, and then I want to look at a couple of headlines today. Here's what it says. It's dealing with the opening of the seals. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given him to sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I behold, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat upon him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. Now, what we have with these 4 horsemen is pretty clear. You have war, a lack of peace. Okay, the peace is taken from the earth, and people were going to begin to kill one another. You have the black horse, which brings economic fallout, right? That's what it means when it's talking about a pair of balances in his hands, and he said a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see not to hurt the oil and the wine. So in other words, the finer things are plentiful, but the basic necessities, like something as simple as wheat and barley, will be expensive. And so you've got food shortages, you've got war, lack of peace on the earth, you've got economic fallout. And then, of course, that is followed by death, the pale horse. And people are killed with the sword and with hunger and with death and even the beasts of the earth. Now, what people don't seem to realize, I know I make general statements like this because depending on where you are in the world, you may realize these things. And so, we all speak from our own place in the world, right? And our own experience. And so I'm when I say most people, or I use these generalities, it's what I personally see in my own corner of the earth. But what I see is a bunch of blind people who just don't have a clue about what's going on in the world. Let's start with a few articles. And most of these are going to be coming from the End of the American Dream or the mostimportantnews.com. Michael Snyder does a great job of putting these together. And that's where I get a lot of these headlines. This first headline says, Civil unrest is erupting all over the world. But just wait till the United States joins the party. Let me read some of this article. He says, all over the globe, the mood is turning sour. Anger and frustration are building over, and protests are becoming violent in major cities all across the planet. In some cases, economic pain is driving the protest, and in other cases, political matters are motivating the protesters. And it has been a very long time since we have seen so many angry protests happening all over the world simultaneously. Unfortunately, many believe that that what we have seen so far is just the beginning. Global economic conditions are rapidly deteriorating, and as economic pain intensifies, that is only going to make everyone more frustrated. And here in the United States, the drama surrounding the potential impeachment of Donald Trump is going to greatly escalate the political tensions that are already deeply dividing this country. No matter how things turn out, a large percentage of the population is likely to be deeply frustrated with the result, and that could easily lead to tremendous civil unrest. All right, so Michael Snyder's just pointing out the fact that the civil unrest is erupting all over the globe, all over the place. We're seeing a lot of it going on in China right now, and the United States is and has been, and I would say Europe too, just at that breaking point where all it's going to take is one thing. One thing. You've got a big bonfire with lots of dry tinder, and it's just one little spark. is going to set this thing ablaze. Now, I don't get into politics, but we will point out that this is just a fact, regardless of where you land politically. Personally, I don't talk about politics because I think it's all a sham, and I don't fall into a side because I think it's just it's all just smoke and mirrors. It's all just a dog and pony show. Nonetheless, it doesn't change the perception of the population. And so either way, this headline is true. And this is what it says. It says, if Donald Trump is impeached, that will be a sign that all hell is about to break loose in America. And I agree. He says, most Americans don't realize it yet, but in just a few weeks, we will witness one of the most critical moments in American history. Right now, the Democrats in the House of Representatives are drafting articles of impeachment, and it is expected that there will be a vote by the end of this year. If President Trump is impeached by the House, that will set off a chain of events that nobody is going to be able to control. And that if the U.S. Senate immediately decides to remove Trump from office, all hell will break loose in America. There are tens of millions of very loyal Trump supporters in this country, and many of them are extremely passionate. Simply impeaching Trump would represent a breaking point for many of them. And if Trump is actually removed from office by a Republican-controlled Senate, it is inevitable that we would see a very frightening explosion of righteous anger. And at that point, there wouldn't be much of anything that could be done to calm them down. A large percentage of the population would instantly lose all faith that they ever had in the political system. And unfortunately, there would be widespread civil unrest in the streets. Now, again, we're not talking politics here. We're just pointing out some facts. And I concur with that assessment. But I think there's an even bigger problem. An even bigger, more dangerous problem than the political problems that we have. You guys may have remembered at the beginning of the year, in the spring, when all the crops and fields were destroyed here in the Midwest. Remember how I created a couple of videos, a couple of podcasts, and warning that there would be food shortages and price increases that would follow all of this. And so many of you probably remember me having those discussions with you. Let's look at a couple more headlines that go along those lines. National Geographic admits billions of people will face shortages of food and clean water over the next 30 years. A lot of people out there don't like it when I write these kind of articles because they directly contradict the false narrative that humanity has extremely bright future ahead. Sadly, the truth is that our planet has everything that lives on it is rapidly deteriorating. And I'm not talking about the false environmentalists being pushed on the mainstream media, Greta Thunberg, and countless of well-funded NGOs. What I am talking about is the stuff that is happening right in our face. We are systematically poisoning our planet. Thousands upon thousands of species are going extinct, and we are literally running out of all the most natural resources. There isn't going to be enough of anything in the not-too-distant future. In fact, the National Geographic is admitting that up to 5 billion people could soon be facing shortages of food and of clean water. Now, interesting enough, the writer of this article points out the fact that we are destroying and poisoning the earth, and that thousands of species are going extinct, and that we are literally running out of our most important natural resources. And that's another thing that I mentioned earlier this spring when I was talking about this issue, and I brought up the scripture in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, which says this: "And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and thou shalt give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth." You see, not only are we seeing this with our own eyes, you see all the chemicals being sprayed on the ground and into the air. You can't even find natural seed anymore to grow plants with because everything is genetically modified now. So you've got frankenseed, frankenfood, poisoned air, poisoned water. It's destroying the planet. It's destroying humanity. And God says he is going to destroy them which have destroyed the earth. And so the Bible is pointing out that the earth is being destroyed. And so this isn't just like, and of course then they're using these examples of climate change and things that they are causing themselves as an excuse to charge you more taxes and to control you more. You see, it's all this big dark plan. And instead of people seeing the reality of the control that's taking over everything and what's happening behind the screens and behind the curtains, people are picking political sides and fighting over political issues that are intentionally pushed out and propagated to the public to get them to fight. Honestly, this is one of the reasons I don't even pay any attention to politics. Matter of fact, I have not been following the whole Trump impeachment thing because I don't believe that it's even necessarily real. I think it could just be more conquer and divide, because it seems to me that what we've been discussing today and what Michael Snyder's been talking about in these articles, this eruption of civil unrest and this destruction of society, is what they want. It's intentional. Because you have to have a complete meltdown of everything. Economically, all of that, before you can bring in a complete world government-controlled government. Before you can really completely and fully integrate the beast system, you have to have the people in the streets begging for it. And you say, why are you talking about these things? You normally don't talk about this kind of stuff. The reason why I'm talking about this and pointing this stuff out is because it goes along with what the scriptures describe that the end should look like. And so as we see these things develop, we are not to be afraid, but we are to know that our redemption draws near. We are not to long for the day of the Lord, the suffering and the wrath, but we are to delight in the appearing of Messiah and hope for his return. And with that return does come his judgment. It's just a strange world we're living in. And it may continue to just get stranger and stranger and stranger and stranger. A couple more headlines, friends, along these same lines. And I'm not going to read the whole article, so I just want to share the headlines with you, and you can get what you need just from the headline here. It says, due to the weather, Midwest farmers fear widespread crop failures, a record low. Snow, I'll just read a little bit of this. Snow usually blanks the upper Midwest around the first week of November, and so that means that many farmers in the Midwest have about 2 weeks to salvage what they can before everything is lost. The unprecedented October blizzard that we just witnessed dumped massive amounts of snow on millions upon millions of acres of crops from Colorado to Minnesota. Even if the weather is absolutely perfect between now and November 1st, farmers are still expecting massive crop losses. So we just keep seeing this weather devastating the food supply. Devastating it. Could be God's judgment. 40 million Americans already don't have enough food to eat, and here is why it will soon get a lot worse. And of course, we don't need to go into the article. I'm sure he's going to talk about the economic slowdowns and the crop loss. I just wanted to point out the reality of this. And so it may be time, and maybe we should all consider this, it may be time to stock up on some more canned food going into the winter. I've seen other reports that they're expecting a harsh winter this year. Of course, you can never tell if that's going to be reality or not. So, one of the reasons I don't like to do this style of podcast is because it just seems so negative and without hope, and that's not the way that we are to live. But I just wanted to point these things out because I think we're going into a very strange time in human history. Well, let me rephrase that. We are already in a very strange time in human history. But I seriously believe that the year 2020 is going to be another one of those years for the history books. And we need not be caught off guard. And one of the most important things, yes, we prepare on a natural sense by making sure we have some food and some water, stored up, and we have some ways to heat some rooms in our houses if we don't have power and those kinds of, by the way, that's just common sense. That's not the world's burning down preparation. Your great-great-grandparents would have just called that not being an idiot, being smart, being intelligent, being prepared. But more importantly than that, we need to be spiritually prepared. And we need to prepare our hearts and minds that things could get bad. Because if it comes as a big shock to the system, that could really be damaging to faith. People who are expecting everything to be merry and happy, shiny faces all the time are going to have some struggles with faith when it really comes tumbling down. You have to settle some of these things in your heart and know that God is able to preserve the righteous during his judgment. We read from Isaiah last week or a couple weeks ago where he says, go into thy wedding chamber or go into thy chamber and hide thyself for a while till the indignation be overpast. There's this idea in the scriptures that when God brings that judgment down on the world, that he is able and willing to protect those who walk in righteousness and holiness, who trust in him for that protection and not trusting in themselves. But that doesn't mean that we don't be smart and we don't be responsible. We are trusting 100% in the Lord, in his provision, in his ability to provide and protect. But we should also take some precautions because it's just common sense. And so I don't enjoy these style of podcast. And originally I wanted to talk about some more artificial intelligence and genetic modification developments, but maybe we'll just have to do that next week because I just felt like I needed to at least mention these things, that these things are happening, that civil unrest is developing around the earth, that it seems that the food supply and the weather and all that is being impacted. And so there's more than just political uproar taking place. There's economic and basic need uproars taking place and protests taking place around the world. And the United States is not going to escape this reality forever. And so I wanted to share that with you. That's all I have for you this morning, friends. And like I said, it really kind of grieves me and pains me to do these type of podcasts because I just feel like we're ending on a negative note. But I pray that the message has been heard and delivered in the powerful name of Jesus, and that whatever needs to be received by those of you who are listening, that it will be received, and that the Spirit of God has spoken to your hearts. I want to thank you for helping me with this podcast, providing for it, helping me to meet the needs of the podcast and meeting the needs of my family through your generous support. It means the world to me, and I'm very, very grateful for all of you who donate, those of you who are the Patreon subscribers who are so loyal and make such a huge difference. Thank you so much. And those of you who pray for the podcast. I have another project that I'm working on, but I need to get closer to it being finished before I announce it. But I'm excited about it. I'm up at 5 a.m. every morning now, trying to finish it and get it ready. And even right now, it's 5:50 in the morning doing this podcast, and then I've got to get ready and then go to work and work all day. And so I'm pouring a lot into this, and so your support and your prayers, they mean a lot to me because I'm working hard at this work. So, all right, I've rambled enough. Peace and grace be with all of you guys, and until next time, God bless.